What's up, everybody? Welcome back to your favorite New York Jets subscription podcast, Badlands. I'm your host, Joe Caporoso, joined as always by Connor Rogers, our first post-game therapy of the 2025 regular season. The New York Jets scored 32 points, held the Pittsburgh Steelers under 300 yards of offense, and yet lost 34-32 on a 60-yard field goal in the final minute of the game. Connor, I'll give you the floor first. How you doing? How you feeling?
Man, this is one of those ones where I've said this a couple times over the years we've been doing this podcast and that I've been doing post game at the same time. I'm glad that I had the buffer from doing the 90 minutes of post game right after the game. As soon as the clock runs out, we're live on SMY. And then my commute back home and then eat a little something. And then you and I jump onto the show. And I watch all the end of the 4 o'clocks. It gives you just like the right amount of a buffer in between. And it's not that I change any of my thoughts from post game, but I just have more to unpack and kind of digest. Where tonight, and I'm curious at large, I'm sure if a lot of people are listening to this on Monday morning, they probably shared this with me by now. Maybe if you're listening right away on Sunday night, you still don't feel better. I'm going to be largely positive tonight, which I didn't feel that way right when it ended. And I think to get the negatives out of the way is the Jets, specifically on offense, aren't going to play this well every week. And you didn't win when you had a lot of people play basically as well as you could ask them to play. That goes from Justin Fields to the entire offensive line to Jeremy Ruckert to, there's guys that you think could do this every week. I think Breece Hall has a chance to do this every week. I think in large part, the main guys on this offensive line can play at this high of a level. Garrett Wilson, I know he had the drop at the end, but Garrett had a really strong game. So it's tough to not get the W in the column, especially against a decent team of the Steelers that are always hanging around the playoff hunt at the end of the year. But when you do put all of that aside, and we'll unpack the Stevens and Gibson of it all and things that, if you listen to this show, I think why you're probably the most annoyed is if Joe and I sitting at home can say, like, hey, Gibson's, barely a guy you want to keep on this roster. Stevens was one of the most bizarre free agent contracts we've kind of seen over the last couple of years. You're probably sitting there going, how don't the Jets see these things? But at large, there are a lot of positive things to take away today from an identity perspective that we've been screaming for years.
I think that's fair. I think let's knock out the negatives first.
Yes.
We got a lot of every question we got in the Discord post game was what you'd expect. How did they pay Stevens? Why is Gibson on the team? How is Tony Adams still starting at safety? And look, you can't fix everything in one off season. I think we both understand that, but I do think that there were other ways to go about doing this, and the pressure now to play guys like Thomas and Moore, if Stevens and Adams are not going to make plays, is only going to increase. I mean, Stevens, at the end of the day, if he catches the interception that Aaron Rodgers throws right to him, the Jets win. If he doesn't get a critical pass interference late in the game, the Jets probably win. Gibson's fumble, probably the most important play of the game, maybe. And he just shouldn't be on a rostered NFL player. This is not new news. And where I want to see Glenn have the immediate accountability, not just the tough words in the press conference, is Gibson should not be returning kicks or punts anymore. He shouldn't. Just put Pritchard up.
He put Arian Smith in on the last one.
That was also terrifying, but good for him. He held it together. Your first touch as a rookie in that spot and had an okay return.
And he did pull Gibson.
Yeah. I understand Wamu got hurt early, but there's other options out there, and you can't look at your team in the face after how bad Gibson was the last 2 years, and then he has a game-killing fumble and not do anything. They're not going to bench Stevens and Adams after 1 week, but I hope they stay open-minded to it, and that's what sucks about this game, man. I understand the national perspective from a zoomed-out lens is going to be Aaron Rodgers threw 4 touchdowns and stuck it to the Jets. You watch the game, the Steelers had 218 net yards passing. The Jets sacked him 4 times. He threw 2 balls that should have been intercepted. It was a bad Michael Carter game. We love Michael Carter here, but bad game, right? Had a killer missed tackle, dropped an interception, struggled throughout the day. Sauce was excellent. The rest of that secondary, man, that's really what cost the game today. We will get into Engstrand and Fields in the offense. They did everything you could hope for. They put up 32 points. You got to win the game when you score 32 points. Yes, there were certain things in short yardage and 2-point conversions we can talk about What's going to stick with me in this game is losing the special teams battle, which in turn lost the turnover battle, and how bad the secondary was. And I don't know if there are immediate fixes there. Like, if you're the coaching staff, what are you doing before Buffalo in 6 days? And then what are you looking at throughout the first month of the season?
Yeah, that's a great question, because you go, okay, what are teams going to attack from what they just got to see week one, compared to coming into this game? We had that fresh perspective. Obviously, you saw Rodgers, and this is a Steelers organization that knows Stevens really well, because a lot of teams in that division last year went after him. That's why when he got the contract he did, people were like, wow, it's kind of a big deal for a guy that he was one of the weak links in Baltimore's secondary last year. Now, the positives, as we've said, he's big, he's physical, he is usually right there in coverage. Yeah. The problem is that doesn't mean anything when you
literally happened to a T today, and I was like, you literally spent all offseason talking about this, and my head almost like fell off my neck.
Right. It's amazing when it just keeps happening over and over again. You might see it once and you're like, oh, that's something that you've heard on the podcast. But when it happens like 7 times, you're like, oh my goodness. So, Buffalo is going to look to isolate him. And this is the thing with the Jets defense now, right? The Jets are going to be a defense that's pretty aggressive. You saw the blitzing today. You saw man coverage today. By the way, Sauce Gardner was awesome today.
Vintage Sauce.
Sauce Gardner was phenomenal. And that's the beauty when you run an aggressive man coverage defense, is you have a number one corner that you could run it through. The problem is when that happens, teams are going to look at your next guys. And right now, teams are going to look at Stevens and say, we're going to throw at him every time they're in man coverage, because he's a liability right now, whether it's interference or he's not getting his head around and the receiver's making a play over him. So that's a big one out of the gate for me. I thought they got a little blitz happy in the first half, and Rodgers is going to sniff that out. Allen's a little different, where he's not going to sniff it out at the rate Rodgers does, because he just doesn't have that kind of IQ or experience in the league yet, and not many will. Aaron Rodgers is in his 40s. But Josh Allen can beat the blitz and run for 40 yards past you, which is, in my opinion, much more scary. So I think that you have to be a little careful with that. My biggest issues with the team right now is that Stevens can be a huge liability when they ask their corners to man up. I don't think Tony Adams can tackle. And every time I ask, can Tony Adams get better at tackling, I'm proven right again that Tony Adams can't tackle. And when you're a safety that can't tackle, that's not...
You're like a chef who can't cook. What are we talking about?
Yes, that's exactly... That's right. So those are 2 glaring issues on... The one that was very disappointing was Quincy's hit out of bounds.
Brutal.
Because that drive starts, the Jets have all the momentum. The Steelers do an outside run. That's a loss of 3 yards. And you're like, oh, the Steelers are just going to be
17 at this point with 16 minutes to go.
They are going to be searching for it. And you hit him out of bounds, and it was way out of bounds. And it gave the Steelers an entire new life on that drive. And that's just a bad penalty, that you're a better player than that. I can't sit here and say getting called for a DPI is a discipline issue. Getting called for DPI is a talent issue. You weren't good enough against Calvin Austin. So that's an issue where it's, what the solution is? If it keeps happening, is R.A. Thomas needs to play.
Yep.
Quincy Williams smashing somebody's, head out of bounds is a discipline issue that you just can't do it. I didn't care about the Simpson penalty. I know some people are saying, well, they could have had a field goal before the half. The Steelers were pulling a lot of shit in the first half, and I want my offensive line to protect the quarterback. It's something we've had a problem with for a long time. Also, a horrible job by the, ancient fossil officiating crew that had a day and a half. And I'm not blaming anything on the refs in this game. I'm saying that they announced the penalty on Garrett Wilson. That was Jalen Ramsey. And then they were like, oh, it was actually on the defense. They were not having they didn't move the ball at one point. It was just one of those days where this has nothing to do with the outcome of the game. Yeah. But you're watching it and you're at the stadium and you're like, these guys are a step behind for an NFL crew right now, both ways. Ramsey pretended to go flying when Simpson went near him and they called it. It's just, that's the nature of the NFL. I'm trying to unpack a lot right now. I need to breathe. It's let me say
a lot happened in this game.
A lot happened in this game. But there was so many pleasant surprises, and we'll talk about Fields later on because that's going to take a while. But the pleasant surprise were Ruckert played really well.
Yeah, there was catches in traffic.
There was just a comfort level with Fields. Membu was awesome in this game. Membu was great. Membu had some clamps on Watt on a couple of reps where I was like, damn.
Yeah.
Olu and Simpson, they ran. It's the surprise is not Olu being good. The surprise is that they looked at the left side of the line with him and Simpson and said, we're going to fucking run behind these guys until, the freaking cows come home. And it worked. So the Jets outran the Steelers in this game by 129 yards and lost the game. It's unfathomable. My last random shout out while it's all spinning in my brain is, damn, how nice is it to have Harrison Phillips and Jawan Briggs on this defense? Actually have some like meat and potatoes in the A gap and the B gap. I loved watching them play. I'm excited to watch the tape. Just stupid miscommunications on the back end. And by the way, Rodgers, 4 touchdowns all week. One was a pop pass to Jonnu Smith. Like, just be serious for one time, everyone.
I agree. And I think offensively, let's talk about the positives, right? I mean, we had very limited expectations for this offense. We were expecting a ground and pound, a certain physical style. That's what the first drive was, right? They came out, they ran the ball every single play. They had a very conservative call on third down. And then Fields played one of the best games I've seen a Jets quarterback play in recent memory. I know it's not a high bar to clear, but was very efficient throwing the football, threw for up over 200 yards, high completion percentage, ran for his 40-plus yards, ran for 2 touchdowns, threw for a touchdown to Garrett Wilson. And I was surprised at how, when he would break the pocket, his ability to try to rip it into tight windows and hit it consistently.
That was jaw-dropping.
Johnson, Reynolds, that was the guy that was a first-round pick.
I think Ruckert.
And he was excellent today. Like, the Jets had a young quarterback play great today, and their young offensive coordinator put up 32 points on Mike Tomlin's defense with Josh Reynolds and Jeremy Ruckert starting. That's not easy to do. And if you have a really good young offensive coordinator and a good young quarterback who could run like that and good young tackles, you're going to find your way to winning some football games where the other kicker doesn't make a 60 fucking yard field goal and you don't fumble at kickoff.
Dude, it was good from 66.
It wasn't no doubt he made it, which is I'm still wrapping my head around.
Right.
But look, is Fields going to play like this every single week? I don't know. History would say no. That is as well as I've seen him play as an NFL quarterback, not just as a runner and as an athlete, but throwing the football and seeing Garrett that comfortable as well. We can nitpick on these final drives, and we will. I have no problem, and I feel like you had no problem with them going for 2 early in the game. I think we say the Jets are going to.
You just don't like the call
every week. It was a 1 yard. They're on the 1 yard line. The only critique I have of Angstran is we got to get rid of the shotgun in short yardage situations. 3rd and 1, 2-point play. His 2-point plays were not good, and that's like a kit he has to work on with his passing game and running game coordinator. Don't be in a shotgun from the 1 yard line. Do the tush push. If you're going to run under center, and then don't come out of a timeout in the 2-point conversion and throw the low percentage back pylon ball to Garrett Wilson. You got to come up with a better play than that. You got to use your size. You got to use your ability to run the ball. I also didn't like the next to last series of the game. It was 3rd and 3, and it was sort of an awkward pull by Fields. It ended up being a 2-yard loss. Get him outside the pocket. He's throwing the ball well. Let him throw in that situation. I'm nitpicking. I thought Angstran and Fields were excellent. I think Membu was excellent. Brees, that's the best I've seen him play since 2020.
He's healthy.
He was running like a guy who's been listening to everything this offseason, and we've been very adamant. Do not trade Brees Hall. We like Braylon Allen. Brees Hall at his best is in a different class than Braylon Allen. I don't want to knock Braylon Allen, who had some nice moments. He had 6 carries for 9 yards. Brees Hall was ripping off 6 yards a carry today and had a massive catch and run on a screen. So is this Jets offense going to be good? And what does that mean for this team going forward? Because you score 30 points in the NFL, it's a different kind of equation because you're not going to be playing the Steelers every week. And you're like, there's going to be other opportunities. It's also week 1, so I don't want to get too far out over my skis. But what were you thinking watching this offense? We are not accustomed to our Jets scoring 32 points in a game. I was very taken aback by it, bluntly.
I think, number one, when they lost AVT, that's a lot on the fly to just say we're going to be who we are, even without who they think is their best offensive lineman. And I've thought this for a while. I think there's going to be a time rather quickly now that Membu and Fashanu, by reputation, pass AVT. But coming into the year, the Jets thought AVT was their best offensive lineman. And with the summer he had, there was good reason to believe that. They didn't change who they were going into this game. And I thought just on broadcast eye test, Tippmann was totally fine. I'm kind of curious how Myers is going to be over the course of 17 games. We'll see how that goes. But I think that really stood out to me. I think the success of this offensive line is sustainable. I mean, when you're pushing around Cam Hayward at that rate, it's kind of eye-opening. And you know what was nice was, this is an Engstrand aspect. They were very intelligent of how they ran the ball. They kept opening up TJ Watt's side to leave him unblocked. And he came close a couple times to getting the back in the backfield during the exchange, but he didn't. So they'd leave Watt unblocked and they'd run the other side to get doubles and climbers up front. And Watt is so aggressive, it just kind of neutralized him entirely for the most part for a lot of plays. He had a couple plays, but they ran the ball away from the team's best player, but also didn't even waste somebody getting hands on him so often so they could actually utilize the player for doubles and climbers. That was nice to see. I love the screen to Breece. That was the right time to do that, and Breece read it really well behind his blockers. I think that Fields' pound-for-pound strength, yes, he's fast, but he gets away from arm tackles in the pocket and keeps his eyes down the field. Today, in the most overreaction I can have to week one, like the most overreaction thought that did cross my mind a little after the game was, is there a world where Justin Fields can kind of play in a Jets offense that is similar to what Jalen Hurts does? And I know that's dangerous to say because one, they just won the Super Bowl and Hurts was the MVP. And that's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about stylistically, where you go, they're not going to throw for 300 yards a lot, and they're not going to be this crazy drop back passing team. But with how well run and orchestrated the ground game is and the usage of the tight end, and that really Garrett Wilson's improvisation skills match so well with Justin Fields' off-script skills, that's a little bit how – now the Eagles have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, so the Jets are going to need that second receiver. But if you want to be as optimistic on Fields as you possibly can, I'm calling it a week one overreaction. 3 weeks we could be sitting here and going, man, like Fields has reverted back to the guy that just can't get it done. That's the offense that you're looking at. And that little play that they ran where I believe it was Braylon Allen, when Ramsey got called for the penalty for going low on him, that was a very Ravens play they run with Lamar, where you have that back as the lead blocker and you get the quarterback running wide. So, like Engstrand, this is not an overreaction. You can learn this from week one and watching him all summer. He knows where to pull plays from and how to call them in the flow. If Fields takes care of the ball, hits a couple big throws, is relatively accurate, but the strength of this team is his running balanced with the actual team's running, like he has a chance to really find it here. I mean, seriously, I know that sounds nuts after one game, but this is a tough defense he went against in a time where you're coming out of summer. Am I crazy for thinking like there's a world where they can run that kind of offense while he's here?
I was just incredibly impressed with the design of the offense. And if Fields can operate in that system, it just exceeds the expectation so high of what I think a lot of people had for what this team could do. Because it's not even a fully built offense yet, right? We still need to see all these supporting pass catchers consistently get going. You got to see a guy like Isaiah Davis get going. It doesn't really seem like he's part of it yet, but I think he will be at some point.
They need a number two receiver. Yeah, I mean,
they do. There's only so much you're going to get. You're going to get what we said. Reynolds, 2 catches, 12 yards. That's what he's going to give you every week. And that's hard to have that be sustainable. I think Mason Taylor will get more involved going forward. He wasn't that involved today. It's his first game. But, Fields could just do certain things athletically that not a lot of people can. And his comfort level, I was a little worried about Garrett's production going into this season.
Me too.
Like, was it going to be something he could get going? And him and Fields look terrific today. And I'm not going to, I need to rewatch the last play. In the stadium, it felt like Fields could run. I've gotten pushback that he couldn't have run. I don't kill Garrett from what I saw in that. It looked like it was a pure hospital ball, and that guy's coming at him like a missile. You can't get into that situation. You need better early down execution. And really, it was the drive before when it was 3rd and 3, when you got to get that first down and run the clock out. I mean, we'll rewatch. We'll talk about it more in the midweek pod. They didn't lose this game because of the offense. They lost this game because the secondary let them down. Gibson had a killer fumble. But we talk a lot about your great players being great. Will McDonald was great today. Quinton Williams was great today.
Jermaine Johnson was good today.
Johnson looked alarmingly healthy in a positive way. And Breece Garrett and Sauce were great today.
Yep,
so what's tough is that, you play Buffalo next week now, right? Buffalo's a Super Bowl favorite. They're 7.5-point favorites as it stands now. They haven't kicked off against Baltimore yet. We'll see how that plays out. It's very reasonable to expect the Jets to lose that game. The Bills are better than the Jets. The Bills are better than Pittsburgh. I know you get them at home. You kind of go in with limited expectations, but you're staring at a situation where, you could be 0-2. And, vibes are nice. And I don't think everyone is going crazy miserable after this loss, but I think Aaron Glenn said it well. Moral victories don't count. And this game was there to be won. And this was an important one to try to grab because Buffalo, they're going to be 7.5-point underdogs against Buffalo. They're probably going to be 7.5-point underdogs in Tampa the week after. Now, after that, we get our friends, the Dolphins, who look like hot garbage today, like we expected.
Mike McDaniel might be gone before Halloween.
Yeah, the mighty Patriots couldn't muster up a win at home against Geno, so they're 0-1 as well. So that's week 4. But I don't know. Look, it sucked losing that game to Aaron Rodgers. It sucked listening to him in the press conference because he was fine today, but he wasn't anything insane. I did not leave that game, and maybe it's just because of the expectations of this season, oh man, this is going to be a miserable season. I was there. It was a fun environment. Shout out again, PK, for an incredible job in setting up a live stream in the parking lot. Izzy got to come over, make an appearance, which was great. A bunch of other people came over and said hi. Mortal Lou from the Discord. It was good to see people we saw get at the live show. Saw a bunch of people, in the stadium who shouted out, it was always nice. It was a good crowd, even though there were probably 30% Steeler fans there. I could only speak to my section. They were not raging assholes, and everyone was just kind of enjoying this sort of crazy back and forth game. And I've sat through too many Tim Boyle 17-6 games and 15-3 games where this wasn't one of the worst losses I've seen in person. And again, I don't want to beat the chest over moral victories, but I left saying the Jets might have 2 really good young tackles, an elite running back, a really good young offensive coordinator.
That's exciting, that part.
And might have a quarterback who may be a little more than a bridge quarterback. I don't know. Maybe. It's certainly a discussion now after week 1. I want to see it 5, 10, 15 games, but he played some damn good football. And he was a first-round pick. This isn't just a random Mike White game where it's oh, my God, it came out of nowhere. So
do you remember our show when the Jets played their way out of when they beat the Rams?
Yeah, they played their way out of Lawrence, and then Fields threw 6 touchdowns?
Well, we were like, hey, this isn't the end of the world. Justin Fields could be a good number 2 overall pick, and the rest was history.
It's just funny that here we are now. So look, this is post-game therapy. It does suck. I still can't believe. I will say it one more time, and I'll say this all week. They scored 32 points. They held Pittsburgh under 300 yards. They held them under 220 passing yards. They lost, and they lost on a 60-yard field goal. Yeah. Not a 50-yard field goal, not a 35-yard field goal, not even a 55-yard. I know the league is changing a little bit. I feel like he might have made that from 67 yards, which you said, which I just credit to Bob.
Yeah, it looked good from about 66.
All right, final words.
I know this was a really positive podcast, and
yeah.
Once again, maybe people are just catching us at the right time because we've digested it. And I'm going to be doing a film room this week, and there's a lot of tape. I'm excited. I'll try to get a play of everybody that I mentioned. I don't know. I think my take is we're going to look back at some point of the season and be like, damn, if they got that win against the Steelers, it would make things look a little different than where they are after week 11 or whatever it may be. Right.
Yep.
But at the same time, like you said, Joe, you outrushed them by 129 yards. Your young players looked the part. The players you paid a lot of money looked the part. And your reclamation project quarterback did everything he could. And the way he carries himself, and he's really tough.
Flight Boy celebration was back. That was nice to see.
It was nice to see. I think that there's a lot if they hang around against Buffalo, and then maybe can you surprise a Tampa, who didn't play great today, by the way.
Yeah, that was an ugly game.
And then, if you really smack around Miami on Monday night, I think the fans get what's going on here.
Yeah.
And I think if you actually show to have an offensive identity, the defense, the back end of the defense was wildly disappointing today. And that's unacceptable because they've invested way too many resources into the back end of this defense for Rodgers hit layups. And we just have to sit here and eat it. And he just let him say whatever he says. honestly, if I'm in my 40s and I act like a high schooler like that at the podium, like I just take me off the air forever. It's really pathetic. But he got his win and he gets to say that. I guess that's the road he wants to take because that's the road he always takes. So we'll see at the end of the year. The Steelers always seem to be the same team every year with no actual getting over the hurdle. I think there's a lot of positives today. There's things to clean up. We'll talk through all of them. When for us, our midweek show, we'll definitely look a lot at the Bills, but I think we'll kind of put a bow on everything here because then I get to watch the tape, and I know you're going to rewatch this game too because you didn't even get to see the broadcast. You were at the stadium. So last thing before we go, stadium environment and energy of the fan base. So give me like an out of 10.
I'll give it like a 7, I'd say.
Yeah, that sounds
there was
right.
There was a lot of Steelers fans, like no doubt.
That's always a problem.
At least 30%. I think in this building it was loud. I think the timing on the cheering and everything and the presentation was fine. It was pretty good. It's just hard with that many Steeler fans there. It was also bad weather, of course, all morning up until kickoff when it was actually really nice throughout the game and warmed up. So pretty good. I can't beat up Jet fans for this, right? I expect Steeler fans to travel. Steelers make the playoffs every year, and for Jet fans, there's a lot of there's been a lot of losing. But I think overall, I would say I enjoyed the experience more than I would have expected today. That's probably because it was a great game. There was a lot of points back and forth, and I've said for a long time, if the Jets are going to lose, have a better offense than a defense. And
Right.
Losing is losing. It sucks at the end of the day, but they actually had that be the situation today where their offense was good and fun to watch, and their defense, it's got some damn work to do. But glad I went. It's always good to get that in-person game back in the cave next week for Jets Bills, and excited to. I need to rewatch it. I need to rewatch the broadcast. I want to rewatch the actual coaches film, and you just miss certain things when you're at the game. You do catch certain things, but you just miss certain things. So we shall be back. First post-game therapy in the book. Hopefully not too many of them this year. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we will talk to you soon.